everyone. Welcome to Lives Worth Telling. I'm your host, Jodes, and my podcast is about digging deep into people's stories and providing them with a platform to share their life and their experiences with my listeners. One of the key reasons in creating this podcast is so their families and friends can have a record of their life, their stories, and their voice forever. One of my favourite things is hearing about people's stories, their triumphs, their hardships, but most of all, I love hearing about their resilience. I really hope you enjoy listening to my guests share their lives with you. I want you to have a few laughs and allow yourself to be immersed in their stories. Well, welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of Lives Worth Telling. Thank you so much to all my regular listeners for coming back to each and every episode. It's so humbling for me. Well, today we meet the very inspiring Chris. Chris's story and achievements in his career have always been so inspiring to me. I have known Chris all my life and I cannot wait for you all to hear his story. He started out as a commercial airline pilot, then pivoted to complete his education degree. He embarked on creating an aviation program for his students at his school and still does this to this day. I am sure you will enjoy hearing Chris talk about how much he enjoys seeing others succeed. So, settle in for an incredibly inspiring story. Chris is a perfect example of being able to achieve your dreams. Enjoy. Okay, this person I have known since, oh my gosh, maybe 4 or 5. And I'm very excited to have this person on because this person has achieved some incredible things throughout his life. I can't wait to get into this interview. So I'm going to say welcome to you, Chris.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for having me.
In the hot seat. Feels good to be back over this side when it was everyone's listened to my episode and sitting over there, my cousin is interviewing me. That was very stressful.
I can imagine.
My cousin did a good job. So, and I've had lots of awesome comments on the episode. So first we're going to start off with background and childhood. So tell me about your family, your parents, your siblings.
All right. So that was myself, mum, dad, and my sister Caroline. We sort of grew up in 2 places, a place called Waratah Bay down in Victoria, and the rest of the time we were at Mulgrave, which then eventually turned to Wheelers Hill.
Yes, that's right, rezoned.
So, we got rezoned, and that was a very, very exciting time. I remember growing up and being told that, we lived in the sticks, and at that stage, that's very much what it was. There was lots of paddocks around, and Ferntree Gully Road was just a one-way up and one-way down with dirt sides, and it didn't have any, gutters or anything like that.
Yeah.
So but these days, it's a very, very different place and a desirable place to live. So it was good growing up there. Went to Brandon Park Primary School with you.
Yes.
And let's see.
So what's the age gap between you and Caroline?
Oh, she's 1974, so 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, two years different.
Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah, but most of my time was spent with mum. My dad ended up leaving home when I was a very, very young age. Okay. So having a dad at home is not something that I've ever known or known what it was like. It was just I was very young, so I don't remember very much. But
so it was just the 3 of you.
Yeah, just myself.
Most of you remember is just the 3 of you. Then.
Yeah, just the 3 of us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
did you have contact with him when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He always tried to keep contact.
Yeah.
And he moved around the world and with work and lived in the UK for a period of time, then in Hong Kong, and I didn't see him over in the UK, but I certainly travelled to Hong Kong many, many, many times, and I think that if your parents are going to split up or anything, then for a lot of people it can be quite devastating, but for me I sort of think it brought a lot of opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have had as well. Okay. And got to do things that, even now I look back at it. At the time, I didn't think much of it because I was young and I just thought, oh, this is normal. But now I look back and think, geez, those are really, really special times. For example, he had an apartment in Kowloon City, Tim Sa Choi, on the 15th floor, and if you literally jumped off the balcony, you'd land in the water. So it was complete 180-degree views of all of Hong Kong harbour.
Yeah,
and now that I sit back and think about that, and I just think just the cost of real estate over there, and yet this was a 3-bedroom apartment. Beautiful, beautiful apartment with, balconies and bay windows and stuff like that. And when I say a 3-bedroom apartment, it's not like a small house. This is the equivalent of a very large 2-story house down here in Melbourne. So it was no way small. It was massive. It had massive entertaining areas and the rest of it. And
oh my gosh,
I was right into aeroplanes at that time, and that's when Kai Tak Airport was operating. So I'd be able to sit there and watch the aeroplanes come down as a small kid, and then I got an aircraft radio that Dad got me, and I could listen to them come in, and I come over the harbour, and it was fascinating to watch, and experiencing, cyclones, and just stuff that I look back at it and I just think this is great. And then he ended up in Taiwan for a long period of time, so then I went over to Taiwan and stayed with him. So, yeah, it was good.
So you did a bit of travel as a kid then?
Absolutely, yeah, more so than what I do now.
Yeah. It's easier when you're a kid. So your dad is a pilot?
No. He used to work for a company called Inchcape.
Okay.
I sort of don't know exactly what they did, but they dabbled in what was then, Cathay Pacific was the Swire Group, but he did a lot of travel, around the world for Inchcape, and I think they had companies like Jaguar and Rolls-Royce and bits and pieces like that. Not 100% sure, but yeah.
Oh my gosh! For some reason I thought he was a pilot in my head. So you were born in Melbourne?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so I guess thinking about school and what school was like for you, and did you like school?
No, I hated school. I hated and despised school. Which is very odd, funny thing to say because now I'm a school teacher.
That's it.
But I'm as far as a school teacher goes, I've done very well in that sector. I became a leading teacher very, very earlier in the piece, and I had a very simple solution to being successful as a teacher, and that was to do everything 180 degrees to what my teachers did to me.
Yeah.
So, and that meant, treating people with a bit of respect and just everything, do the opposite of what happened to me. And that was the key. So I just literally hated it. And Caulfield Grammar was the school at the time. And
so primary school was okay?
Primary school was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind that at all.
Yeah.
It was just the secondary school side of things. And, looking back at it now, it's still horrific to just, had I known what I'd known now, I still wouldn't have gone back to that school. But the staffing was atrocious. There was only one really nice guy that sort of could see good. All the other teachers always spoke very, very poorly. There was none of this encouragement or anything like that you see from schools these days. But now there's one person that did stand out, and his name was Jock Nelson, and he I've got some great memories of him, and it's just funny that not only just recently he managed to get my details through the school that I'm currently at and contacted me and suggested that we should catch up. Of course, he's in his 80s now. But
Jock Nelson, I reckon my dad, that rings a bell with me. Has he been at Caulfield for a very long time? Yeah, that name rings a bell for me because my dad went to Caulfield. So, yeah, that rings a bell for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, and he had a very, very deep voice. And
voice for radio.
Well, some of my, and I still do impressions of him today because he was so funny. Like in these, like the assemblies that he used to run were just so like military assemblies where no one was allowed to talk or anything like that. He'd stand up there and he goes, everyone was petrified of him, and I was no exception. And he'd stand up there and he'd say nothing, and that was even more terrifying than him actually saying something.
Just the look.
Yeah, and he'd say, "There'd be boys at school deliberately littering
Oh.
No, not in my school. But he'd say that word deliberately. That he'd say it so loud and so powerful that you'd actually jump out of your seat and be scared, even though you're a good 60 metres away from the front of the stage. So, yeah, he knew how to play the game. So, actually, I look at him and I sort of mimic some of the things that he does still in my teaching today, because he was very, very good at what he did.
Yes, a master of his art. So it was so in terms of not liking school, was it the content at high school, or teachers, students?
There was just no combination. There was no encouragement. There was none of this. Oh, you're doing a good job, or it was just everything was negative. But schools are a lot different these days.
Yeah.
You know? Like I never got told, oh, you're doing a good job on that, or can I give you a hand in this? There was nothing like that at all. It was just always, this is what you're doing wrong. And when you get pounded with what you're doing wrong all the time, you just look at yourself and think, what am I even doing here?
Yeah.
But it's so different now. I remember distinctly what it was like back then. And schools these days are a completely different world. For example, you've got, well-being workers. You've got student managers that actually do take an interest and care about you and keep in contact with your parents. And, we have merit award systems, and we try and find the good. And even, someone might not be brilliant at one thing, but, it could be made up in other areas. And so you focus in on those. But at a private school, it was very, very different. It was just sort of, this is what it is, and it just, this is the way we're going to do it, and if you don't like it, then tough. There was no compromising or anything like that. For example, if you're going to be given a school task and, you just think, oh, this is really, really boring, well, you can still do the same task, but then ask someone, okay, if you're not really, what's a good example? Something that I'm not interested in is golf. You know what I mean? So if I was asked to do a project about golf, I just think, oh, this is boring, And these days, a new approach is, well, okay, we can still do the same questions, but how about you do it in something that you're interested in, like aeroplanes, in which I think, oh, yeah, that'd be really good. So I'm still doing the task, but I'm doing it in something that actually I want to do rather than not what I want to do. You know what I mean?
So, thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's right.
That's good. And I think just then when you were saying then about teachers and encouragement, I kind of think the same as with the school that I went to as well, that there was few and far between teachers where that you could tell that they're actually nice and they cared. Like most of the time it was.
Well, my memories of your high school is, travelling to and from the bus and, being called in the next day. I never sat up the back of the bus because of the bad boys and all that, but I used to, that whole bus, got called into the school like every week. Who was throwing bananas at the Shelford girls and who threw the orange that hit someone in the head at Shelford as you drove past.
Those Caulfield boys, geez.
It was always the people at the back. I used to sort of sit up the front. I was a little bit nerdy, but it was never. So I never did anything like that, and I wouldn't even dream of doing it.
I didn't know that they got called.
Oh yeah, all the time. Whatever happened, it was just always okay. It's that bus that was going to Glen Waverley. I want you all to
out in the sticks,
come into the big room and have a discussion about what happens. And, quite often. Yeah.
Trouble. Yeah. So thinking about your family, and what are some memorable trips or outings that you had with your family as a kid?
Oh God, there's lots. It was a split family, but the time that I spent down at Waratah Bay, and Mum only recently sold that. That was sort of like my home, and I always considered it my home. So I just loved being down there because I'd just walk outside and I was literally on the beach going up to the rocks, and it's where I basically grew up.
So when did she move there or buy there at some point?
It was my grandmother's house.
Oh, okay.
And
yes.
She ended up dying. And then that place ended up being Mum's, and so we just hung on to it for years and years and years. But she only sold it a couple of years ago because we've grown up, and it's very, very remote. Like just to go to the closest shop was a 25-minute drive each way.
Okay.
So if you forget the milk, you'd be spewing. But all my trips to Hong Kong and the places that I went to, staying at places like Club Med in Bali and Phuket, and so it was all. I didn't miss out. As I said to you, for me, I don't look at it as a disadvantage. I look at it as, wow, look at the stuff I got to do that other people don't do. You know what I mean? So.
Did you have contact? Like, how did Christmas work with extended family? Did extended family on cousins, aunties, uncles?
Oh no, it's only recently, within the last probably 10 years, that. We've either gone over there. Dad lives in Adelaide now.
Okay.
But we've gone to Adelaide to spend Christmas there. He's never come down here for Christmas.
Wow. Really?
No. So Christmas is always with Mum or with Julie, my wife.
Yep.
We just swap it around. From siblings to siblings. So this year it's at our house, and I love my cooking, so I don't mind when it's at my house.
You do love your cooking.
But when we've spent a couple of Christmases over in Adelaide, and my sister and we take it in turns to go over there. But it's difficult to sort of coordinate, if you know what I mean, because my kids are at that age now where they're just getting into, I want to go to the shopping centre, I don't want to spend time with Dad. So whereas I used to take them camping by myself quite a lot, and they used to love it, or I'd take them to Adelaide by myself because they loved the swimming pool and everything. They're just, I want to spend time with my friends, or, I've got sports, or I've got basketball, or I'm playing soccer, or I'm refereeing this basketball game, or, whatever it might be.
There's other things at play.
Other things on the side that have, changed the dynamics.
Yes, yes. So my next segment is family life as an adult. And I know the answer to this question. Have you ever been married?
Yes.
just the once?
Yeah, just the once.
And do you have children?
I've got three girls.
Three girls.
Yeah.
Oh, Petticoat Junction, as they call the 3 girls, Petticoat Junction. And how old are they all?
15, 13 and 12.
Yes.
So,
gosh, you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. Everybody keeps telling me how hard my life is going to be, but...
It may not be.
I don't think so.
It may not be.
Sometimes there's challenges and the rest of it, but just like everything else, you've got to work out ways to make it work, and you work around it because, and you've also got to expect too that coming into those teenage years, there's going to be more and more challenges along the way, and I guess I just have to deal with it. So
roll with whatever
sink
happens.
Or swim. So
what about your trips or outings that you've done with your family as an adult? What have you guys done together that has been significant?
We don't. The kids really take the priority, so we don't actually get out all that often. Mm-hmm. And because I love my cooking so much, and I spend a lot of time learning about it and doing it, like if we're doing pasta or steak or something like that, or I had a wood-fired pizza oven as well, and I got used to making it like it was restaurant quality food, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so when we go out now somewhere, we pay like 3 or 4 times much more, and you just eat it and you think that's not real good. And all of us have just eaten. My whole family are like that. If we go out somewhere and say, "Oh, that's not real good," we
better food at home.
Yeah, we get better food at home. Yeah,
provided by yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, we try and do little things, like tours of mansions, like down at Werribee Mansion or something like that. Yeah. And those things are good. But as I said to you, it's hard to get everybody together, and they at this age they just want to sleep pretty much and spend time in their bedrooms. And I occasionally see them when they want to come out and graze and want something to eat, and then they take themselves back off to their room.
Graze. So holidays for you guys when the kids were younger, or you've got your
caravanning, basically. Yeah, we used to do lots of caravanning trips. So I've still got the this is my 5th caravan now. And, we started off with just a tent.
Yes.
And that was horrific because we had Ava was only a baby then. And Julie said, listen, I'm going to take the tent down with Ava and we're going to go camping on the Inverloch foreshore. And I said, all right then. So she'd pack up the car and the tent, and that was one of those weekends where the place just rained and rained and rained, and the tent got flooded, and she rang me up and said, come down and pick me up.
Rescue.
So I did, and And then after that, she said, "This is crap. We're not going to do this anymore. I'm going to get a little caravan." So we got a little Jayco Swan. It was, and that was good. But it didn't have air conditioning, and we couldn't take it away in summertime because it just heated up like an oven.
Okay.
And it was just about died in that. And then I thought, I've got to get rid of this and buy something with an air conditioner. And so that's how it all changed.
Yeah.
And then
you keep upgrading each time.
It kept on upgrading. And then the kids were young and, I didn't want them to go to the toilet by themselves at night time. And I didn't want to actually get up and have to take them.
Yes.
Because, if it's wet and the mud and everything else. So I wanted a toilet and shower. And then that caravan went because the toilet and shower combined. And then I upgraded it to get a separate toilet and a shower and, so it's just been it's a hobby of mine now.
Yeah.
It's like the most decked out caravan. We we thought we'd do something really stupid and it wasn't stupid at the time, but we thought let's go to Cairns and she's a school teacher and so am I. And we took a year's leave without pay. And we loved going up to, places like Palm Cove and
beautiful
Port Douglas and stuff like that. And we thought, let's go and live up there where the weather's a lot better. And, straight away we both picked up teaching jobs because teachers are, really needed up there.
Yeah,
so
that's perfect.
Job security wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And so, we went up there and houses were at that time very, very cheap relative to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So we bought a house and but we had it rented out for a while. So we lived in the caravan, the five of us and a cat. For six,
the cat came with you.
Yep, for 6 months we lived in a caravan.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. At a caravan park. And it wasn't as bad as what you thought. It's actually we just once we had a routine.
Did the cat stay in the van?
In the caravan.
How did you manage that?
Well, then we had an awning. I went and got a custom built awning and then I put fake grass down so the cat couldn't actually escape outside. So it was always contained within the caravan or the annex. But to operate out of there. But teaching up there was absolutely horrendous. I've never seen such a poorly run education system.
So were you both high school
Both
schools?
high school teachers,
Yeah.
Yep. And compared to the standards in Victoria, I couldn't survive up there. Every day it was like, oh, my God, I wish it was Saturday or Sunday so I didn't have to go back to school. And it was also the unwillingness of those teachers to try on anything new. And I just can't work with people that are like that because, my philosophy is that for kids to get along in this world, they have to have, computer skills and have resilience and not be spoon-fed. And none of that happened up there. None of the teachers I found to be engaging. It was just a job. And everything was on go slow up there. I understand that it was hot and it was always hot and muggy and things happen a little bit slowly. But just the way that teachers think down in Victoria compared to North Queensland teachers are just two completely different things. So when I drove up there with my car and I was walking to it one night and I read the back of it and it said Victoria, the education state. And I know that you just look at number plates and you think, oh, yeah, Victoria Garden State, yep, whatever, Victorian education state, yep, you've got to have some sort of slogan. Tell you what, it's never been so true.
Yeah.
It really is. The difference in standards are incredible.
Yeah.
An example being, one of the so-called top students went down to a university in Sydney and thought that she was all fully prepared and the rest of it. She lasted about 2 weeks and then ended up coming back to Cairns and started working in a Bunnings store.
Yeah, right.
Just the opportunities for people up there. It's just a completely different world. And so, when I hear in the news that, people are moving to Cairns because of the lifestyle and the rest of it, there's so many other things to consider. Like if I wasn't a school teacher, I'd just think, the kids are complaining about school because that's what kids do.
Yes.
I did. I used to complain about school, but even now I had reason. But if I was doing any other job, I'd just think that they were whinging about this or that and it wasn't justified. But boy, I can honestly tell you that it was the experiences up there for them and myself was just horrible. Like if anything, I would not put my kids through that sort of education system at all. And the other thing that was so disappointing is I tried numerous times, so many times, just to speak to the principal up there at the time and say, we can do things better by doing this and this and this. never got invited into the office to even share ideas of what we were doing down in Victoria, which were 1,000 times better than what they were doing up there.
Yeah.
They just were not interested.
Isn't that interesting?
And I just thought, wow, whereas down here, if you've got an idea, hey, yep, let's make a time, put it on the table, let's have a look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
It's always considered, but never even got the opportunity up
there. So what year was this that you...
2021.
Yeah, so not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so fairly recently. So we had our house rented out down here in Melbourne and even, wanted to pay for them to leave. And I rang up the principal of the school that I'm currently at down here because he knew that I was going up there and I was telling him all about it. And he said, that's just horrific. And he goes, you can come back here whenever you like. And I said, look, I'm writing this course for the school like I promised I was going to do. I'm going to see that out.
Yeah.
And then I'm packing up. And the best way for us to see Cairns was through the rear vision mirror of the car.
Yes.
Although Julie came up
That's
and
very funny.
Yeah, Julie left earlier in the year, started working down in Victoria. So I was up there with the 3 kids by myself for a period of time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, for months and months.
Cat? Or did the cat come back?
No, the cat was up there too.
Yeah.
And then when it all ended, I just put everything on Facebook Marketplace, the beds, the furniture, the whole lot, because it was going to be way too expensive to ship back down.
Yes.
So I just sold it all on Facebook, cleaned up the house and hooked up the caravan, put the cat on the front seat and said to the cat, all right, here we go. We were driving 3,000 kilometres down, and that's what we did.
Oh, my gosh. Could have made a movie about it.
Oh, yeah.
Matt and his cat.
Mm.
Oh, my gosh. What an incredible opportunity. But it's interesting what your perspective was of the opportunity. What were the kids' view? So were they going to school up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was their experience?
Oh, well, I was a bit concerned about one of my daughters. She was falling behind in primary school. And I thought, the education system, surely it's got to be a little bit similar up there. And I decided to keep her down one level.
Okay.
And that was all approved and the rest of it. And then I had a look at the work that she was bringing home and I thought, oh, my God, like the work that they're doing is just for example, I would be teaching year 10 maths, but the class was at a year 7 standard.
Yeah, right.
And, and it was the same at the primary school. I was having a look at some of the stuff that my daughter was doing. She was getting straight A's in everything because the Victorian education system was just so miles and miles in front of Queensland.
You would assume, as a national level, there's not even a national level there.
Well, that's what I thought too until I got there. And then I looked at it and I thought, oh, my God, what is this?
Yeah, yeah. Did they have a good time though, like packing up the house and going to live somewhere different for a year?
Look, at the start of it, yeah, it was all very, very exciting.
Yeah.
But the school and the people that just dampened the whole thing, you know what I mean? Like they made some friends there and, there's some of the people they still keep in contact with. Yeah, so that was good.
They were happy to come back?
Oh, wrapped. Yeah.
Everyone was wrapped.
Yeah, everyone's happy. Even I'm wrapped to be back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, the weather's not as good and the rest of it, but the opportunities that you've got down here, and it's not until you realise what's there. If you're away from it, like we were, you look back and you think, God, look at all the things that you can do down in Melbourne.
You wouldn't think it'd be any different.
It's completely different. So if anybody's considering about... moving or whatever, make sure you do your research first, So
is it the state government there that is managing the situation? It's just not...
Yeah, it's so policed. For example, if I need something photocopied for a kid down here, I'll just go into the photocopy room and I'll photocopy it, right? Yeah. Up there, you're not allowed to do that. You have to give it to the photocopy lady and then say how many copies you want and wait 24 hours for it to be turned around. And Victoria used to be like that.
Wow.
Years ago, 16, 20 years ago, it used to be like that here. But we just got with the times, but that's what it's still like up there. And I think, are you for real? I've got to go through the photocopy lady and, yes, you have to fill out the piece of paper and it has to be,
my goodness.
You have to put it in the in tray and they'll put it on the desk when it's photocopied. And I just think this is just ridiculous.
Jeez, it's like applying for a loan or something.
And, I'll get into this later on, but, I was in the aviation industry as well. And a mate of mine up there, I taught his son and he was his dad was a Qantas captain.
Okay.
And we used to get together and have a couple of drinks, after school or on the weekends or something. And he said, so what's the school really like? And I said, mate, get your son out of there as soon as you can. And he goes, it's not that bad, is it? And I said, I'm telling you, get your son out of there as soon as you can. And so he took him to a private school, because there's plenty of private schools up there as well, and, had to go through an interview process. And so he got a copy of the report, and he had his, interview like I'm being interviewed now.
Yeah.
And he said, and the Qantas captain said to the principal, I've got his report here if you want to have a look at it. And he goes, no, we won't be needing that. And he thought, actually, that's unusual. And he said to me, Chris, we were there for about an hour, and he goes, I couldn't help myself. I had to ask him, why is it that you didn't want to see the report? And you know what he said? He turned around and said, because it's from School X, and I'm not going to mention the school.
Yeah.
And he said, we know that they falsify those reports, and it's not worth the piece of paper it's written on, and it's common knowledge. And so, and that's actually very, very true.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's great.
I failed a couple of kids up there in the subjects that I was teaching because they did nothing. And at the end of the year, when I was wrapping things up, they said to me, can you please change your reports on the computer to pass these people? And I said, but why?
Oh, my goodness.
And they said, well, because, no one at this school fails. And I said, what? and then they tried to pin me on, but have you gone through the right procedures? Like, have you spoken to the student? Have you spoken to the parent? Have you done that? And I come from Victoria, mate. I'm all over this, so I'd done every channel.
Don't even try.
And then they said, success could be that they just show up at school expecting me to pass them. And so I said no, because I've got integrity. And professionalism.
That's right.
And then they cracked it at me because I wouldn't change the failure to a pass, but in the end they went in and changed the results anyway. They went into the computer system, changed my results to make these kids pass anyway. Goodness. So after that time, I just thought, well, there's no point in even marking people's work because they're going to get passed anyway. And so it's this falsification that you're really doing something well. And telling these kids that they're doing a great job when they're miles and miles behind the rest of the country, essentially.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
I bet you're very, very glad to be home then.
Yep, absolutely.
After that, definitely. So we're going to flick to relationship questions.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you meet your lovely wife?
Well, that's really interesting too.
Hello.
Well, let's see. I went to – I was always, flying aeroplanes and, at the time I was a flight instructor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought never put your eggs in the one basket. And I thought I've got to do something different because, flying, especially at that time in the mid-1990s was, anything could happen. Your eyesight might fail, you might have poor health, the economics of the whole systems might change. And, I mean, how many airlines have we seen go on their back?
True belly up. Yeah.
So I thought I'll do a teaching course because at the time when Brandon Park Tech School was around, my mum was an integration aide there, and so I got myself a job as an integration aide.
Oh, did you?
And I thought this is interesting, and I was just helping people. It could be writing something down or just that extra, helping hand. And I thought, this is quite fun and interesting. And then I ended up at Mount Waverley Secondary College as an integration aide, and I thought, I quite like this. And the principal at the time said you should do a teaching course, and she said, listen, I'll put in a good word for you. And I said, all right. And I thought about it, and I thought, I should do something like that. And so off I took myself to university whilst at the same time I still had to make money. So I worked in a service station 7 days a week at Shell at Brandon Park.
So what year was this then you went off to
this is like 1999 or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I did a teaching course and I qualified in teaching, and I remember doing my last exam and got told I passed, and now I'm a qualified teacher. And I like most people do when you're that age, I went out and had a few drinks, and then I came home, and this is just when the internet was coming out,
Yes.
And I thought, I couldn't believe you could send, one message from one computer to another. It was unheard of. And so, eventually I had a computer and I had a 14.4K modem, dial-up modem. And I got on there and there was a education department of the Northern Territory and, under the influence, I wrote out this job application and sort of forgot that I'd done it. And then the phone rang early in the morning, and mind you, it wasn't a mobile phone. I didn't have one. It was just like the old Bell telephone.
Yes.
And it was a representative from the Northern Territory government who said, "Oh, can we do a phone interview now?" And I said, "Yeah, all right." And they asked me some questions, and then I got offered a job up at Tennant Creek. I didn't even know where Tennant Creek was, but I accepted it, and then I hung up the phone. I thought, oh my God, what have I just done? I've just said that I'm going to be teaching in a place that I don't even know where it is. So off I went I packed up the car. I was petrified about what I was doing. I just loaded it with food and everything like that. Of course, I'd done a little bit of research on what Tennant Creek was, this old outback mining town, but I ended up staying up there for about 3 years.
So how old were you at the time when you did that?
Oh, this is 2001.
Yeah, okay.
So over 20 years ago now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And did that, and that was my first teaching job. And it was actually it was very, very frightening because I was just in a place that I didn't know, but at the same time,
away
it was
from home.
Best experience ever. The Northern Territory government encourage teachers to go up there even now, and they provide housing for you and all these different benefits. And I thought this is great. Perfect. And it was a great way to make some money. And eventually, I just thought, I haven't met anyone yet, and I'm not going to meet someone in Tennant Creek. So, I did meet someone, but it didn't quite work out. But I ended up coming down to Melbourne, and then I went into a school, and Julie was one of the teachers there, and I thought, oh, she's nice,
Okay.
And then got talking to her, and then she said, oh, my friends are going out to this Afghan restaurant. Do you want to come along? And I said, oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's how I met her.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say when you were a pilot that you maybe sung to her in a bar, Top Gun style.
Oh, no.
You've lost that loving feeling.
No, that's definitely stuff in the movies.
You haven't replayed that scene at all?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Very good. Oh, that's so good. I guess what are some of your early and best memories together when you first met? Pre-kids, pre-everything.
Oh, pre-kids and all that. Oh, just the time we had to go and do things, you appreciate time, as I said to you before.
Free as a bird.
You were free to do this. Let's go out and do this. Let's go out and do that. Whereas now everything revolves around what the kids want to do, not necessarily us. But that's what happens when you become a parent, I suppose.
That's right. And I guess any trips or holidays that you did together before the kids?
What did we do? When we got married, we went to Fiji. That was nice.
Yes.
But before that, it was just just spending time together.
Yeah.
It was nice. You know what I mean? We had a house up in the hills in Upwey that had the most magnificent view, and it had, it was on a very, very steep block. But
so that's where you lived first off. Yeah, right.
And just pottering around and just doing things around the house, and building stairs to get up to another. Platform above where we lived, I'm talking mountain goat steep.
Right.
So everything had to be built in stairs. So we did that together, and
Perfect.
It was hard work, but it was good fun. Good memories of doing stuff.
That's
like
awesome. I love that. What do you admire most about Julie?
Her calmness.
Her calmness. Oh, good on her.
And she's incredibly smart as well.
Yeah,
she runs rings around me, and she's a lot more patient and level-headed.
Oh, that's so nice.
I'll fly off the deep end.
She smooths everything
She
out.
just calms everything down and says, take a deep breath and all that.
Good on her.
So
you have to have. I think that's that opposite kind of yin and yang. Where someone might be highly stressed about something, but the other person's there to smooth everything out. Yeah. Otherwise, everyone would be running in circles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Are there any personality traits or quirks that you love about her?
She's very witty.
Yeah.
and she's got an answer for everything. But not in a nasty way.
Yes.
She's just got a solution to whatever might come up.
Yeah.
You know, like I was before I even started this, I was telling you about my daughter's upcoming birthday, which is causing me severe anxiety. But, you know, she says, everything's going to be fine, this is going to happen, and this is what we're going to do for this.
Very
and that,
positive.
And that. Yeah, and she's just, she turns things around. I sort of look at things and I risk assess everything, you know what I mean? And,
I bet you do.
And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just because I know that we've spoken about it before, but my daughter goes to the same school that I work at.
Yes.
And also my wife works at as well, and I'm one of the coordinators there. And so she wants to invite some people around that, you know, I've concerns about their character, and you know, I've got my school life, which I don't like to interfere with my home life, but the thought of them coming into my home sends goosebumps up and down my neck, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's funny. It's the way I guess you're both looking at that as Julie's looking at it. It's like, it's going to be fine, and it's not going to be fine, but time will tell. We will see.
Yeah. Although I'm sure at the end of the day it'll work out. But you know, it's just I would have thought that if someone's turning 16 years old and they want to have a birthday, that you might have 8 or 9 friends over or something like that. Like that's the sort of party that I envisage. But you know, not when it's 32 people and they're all students that you teach. I just look at that and think, I don't reckon that's a good combination, you know. So
you just run away for the night.
Yeah.
I love that you're like acknowledging, I guess, the strengths in Julie. That it's so nice, so nice. I guess what are your dreams for the future together? Like, what do you see?
Oh, I want to retire.
Post kids, you know. Everyone's out. What do you hope to do together?
It's not something that I've really focused on. You know, like I always think about, you know, when I'm going to retire and how much money is in my superannuation and where I would like to go. And, you know, I've got dreams and visions and stuff like that. Yeah. And we haven't really spoken about it because we're just concentrating on, you know, the next 10 years with kids, you know, and what the challenges that's going to bring. And, of course, challenges and joy as well.
That's right.
But just focusing on that at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's it's hard to look a little bit further than that right now. So I guess this next segment is quite a big one. I am so inspired by, I guess, your work and profession. But what was your very first job?
Oh, it was a kitchen hand.
Okay.
Washing dishes near Albert Park Lake.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember the name of the place.
Wow. How'd you end up there?
Oh, hang on. No, it was before that. It was at the Wheelers Hill International Hotel, which has now been knocked down as a retirement village.
Yes, it is.
And I used to do room service.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I used to have to get dressed up and, you know, the kitchen and call and room service and, you know, basic maintenance. So it was just walking people's dinner to them and picking up plates and all that sort of stuff. So, and then because I didn't have a car license at that stage, so then when I got a license, then I worked as a kitchen hand at a restaurant in South Melbourne.
Yeah, right.
No, not South Melbourne, around Albert Park Lake, yeah.
So your profession now, so take us through the why and the how you got to be, I guess you've got two, I guess, quite significant professions, and most people have one. So take us through from the beginning how you got where you are.
Well, I worked in a service station pretty much 7 days a week for years and years, even on Christmas Day and all that sort of stuff to try and get some money up, and I loved my flying and I kept on doing that and then became a flight instructor. But as I said, you don't want to put all your eggs in the one basket.
Yes.
So I did the teaching course and I really, really enjoy the teaching, I must admit. But where I am is on a flight path for, a couple of major, GA aircraft and also some an airline route. And I see the plane at the time, this is years and years ago.
Like when you were kid? No?
Oh, no, like earlier in the piece, when I just sort of started teaching at this school, I'd look up and I'd think, all these aeroplanes and skills that I had as a commercial pilot at that time, I could be sharing my skills with these students at the school. And so with that, I put in an application, as it did back then, to start a new subject up, which was, flying, and they ended up calling it Top Gun. I was going to say Getting High with Bazza, but they said that a name like that could be misinterpreted. I don't know why. So they ended up sticking it with Top Gun. So,
that's unreal. Yeah. What kid wouldn't want to do Top Gun subject?
Yeah,
right?
Well, that's it. So, and I pleaded with them for 4 years to the curriculum committee, and they laughed at me and said, "Don't be ridiculous. It's just the stupidest thing I heard." And I said, "I can make it work." So for 4 years they said no. And then I actually got it through and I started. And so now what I do is teach people who know nothing about airplanes and turn them into airline pilots because, it just grew and grew and grew. And it just went from, learning how to go solo at year 10 level to then the vet in schools, which I helped set up, in year 11 and 12. So
that's unreal.
Yeah. So that's how that happened. And I was also flying a lot, actually, as the chief pilot of 2 skydiving centres, and ended up being an instructor teaching people how to, fly jump aeroplanes, and that was great fun. I'm not doing it as much these days, but the students that did the courses, I could then give jobs to, and that was a cool, distinct career path for them. So. Yeah. That was really, really good. And many of them now are airline pilots or flying. One of them's flying the Richard Pratt's jets all around the world, and they often reference me and say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing something like this.
That's unreal.
So I get a lot of joy out of seeing them progress and seeing them succeed. So anyway, and then I was years ago in 2012. Someone nominated me for Teacher of the Year, and I looked at it and laughed at it and thought, oh, that's a bit silly. And they said, you stand a real chance. You're doing something that nobody else is doing.
Yes.
And so with that, I said, oh, all right. So someone wrote something up and sent it in. And then I got this, they called me in for an interview at Treasury Place and asked me about what I was doing. And I said, oh, well, I was flying aeroplanes, and I looked up in the sky and, I thought I can share my skills with you. And they said that was fantastic, but I ended up winning Teacher of the Year, and that brought some, that was out of all of the Victorian teachers.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that was great. So I got a lot of recognition there. When then a lot of other schools, noticed what I was doing and then contacted me and said, we want in, how do we do it? So I helped them set up, and then I was nominated for the Lindsay Thompson Order of Australia for teaching excellence, and the year after, in a back-to-back award, I ended up winning that as well.
Cleaning up.
So I got even more recognition. So, and that even ended up as a scholarship. By that stage, I'd gone from commercial pilot's license to an airline transport pilot's license, which is the highest license that you can get, got sponsored to fly the Boeing 737. So I ended up, doing the FO course on the 737, and ended up qualifying, to the stage of captain on the Boeing 737.
Yeah.
And so that was so really exciting. Good. So when I'm teaching these kids, they're not just being taught by a teacher. They're talking to someone that has been flying for years and years and years with experience.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Which makes a big difference in the teaching of aviation, because, it's a fantastic opportunity to be doing something like that at school, because you're doing it at school.
Yeah.
It's subsidised. It's GST free. So if you're wanting to learn how to fly, this is the school to come to,
Yeah.
So,
And I also, too, introducing a subject like that into a public school would be unusual as well. You would see those kinds of programs in private schools where people are paying.
Yeah, and it was interesting.
Bucket of money.
Well, yeah, that's right. And it was public schools that contacted me first, saying, "Can you share the work with me and and tell us how we can get started. And then, of all places, Caulfield Grammar jumped on
where's that phone call?
the bandwagon and said, hey, how would you like to do that at this place? And I just turned that
Johnny
down.
come lately?
No, I'm not doing that.
On principle.
But I was just thrilled that I feel like I'm providing opportunities for people that they otherwise wouldn't have had.
Absolutely.
You know? So
what when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was that
I
pilot?
always wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah.
But
where did that stem from? Is that just
probably seeing my dad always at the airport?
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
And then I'd look at aeroplanes and just think, how can something that heavy get off the ground and
that's what I wonder.
From one place to another. And I was always very, very inquisitive. Like if I was given something, I'd have to take it apart and learn how it worked. And I had to learn, how does this aeroplane do that? And that I had a natural interest in science, and so I found stuff like that fascinating. And even today, I still find it fascinating. And I'm. They say you never stop learning, and that's very true for me too. I never stop learning about different things.
So how old were you when you first flew a plane solo?
16.
Gosh.
And that made the newspapers because I was flying airplanes solo, by myself, but yet I wasn't old enough to have a license for a car.
The asphalt, yeah.
And at that stage too, I couldn't even have L plates, so my mum used to drive me down to the airport. I'd jump in a plane and fly around by myself for a while, and then she'd have to pick me up.
How
bizarre.
So,
the newspapers got onto that, like your Herald Sun and all that, and said how ridiculous is this that you can fly planes around by yourself, but you're not allowed to drive a car. So.
that is the irony. So if you, how you got to fly a plane by yourself, there's a certain amount of hours that you need to be able to get to that?
Yeah, there's to be able to fly solo,
Yeah.
So there's the hours and the experience that you need, and that's still true to this day. No, at school, for example, I'm teaching flight as a past flight instructor. Everything has to be quite it's a very regulated industry. So what's taught down in Melbourne, as far as aviation is concerned, is the same in Brisbane or Darwin or Perth or Adelaide or any of those places, or even small communities. Is this thing called the Memorandum of Understanding, which is your flight instructor's manual. So everything has to be on the same page, and everyone does the same thing in a very highly regulated sequence. So what I teach at school is exactly the same as what somebody would be learning in Brisbane or Adelaide or whatever. So it works out so well and so efficiently because all of the theory and pre-flight briefings are done at school, and then I can take the kids down to the airport each week and they go for their practical flying lesson, and the instructors don't have to check with me what have I done because they know that I'm being a flight instructor, that I'm doing it exactly by the book, what I mean? So it's all... It works out really well.
So how many classes a week would you take to the airport? This is every week you go?
Oh, every fortnight we're doing it at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've got 17 in the class at the moment. I could take more, but we're limited to, how many aeroplanes do we have? How much time do we have? How many flight instructors do we have to employ to try and, get people up for their flying lesson and turn around and put another person in the seat and then take them off so they can do their, a repeat of the flying lesson. So it's resources that is slowing me down.
You hire the planes. Yeah. So the cost, that's amazing.
So we've got 8 aeroplanes and about 10 instructors.
Okay.
But, if one of those instructors is away or whatever, it does slow us down a bit.
Yeah.
So we've got 8 full-time flight instructors and 2 on standby. But, it's in wintertime, things like, 4 of them might go down crook, so we might not get through everyone. So it takes a little longer to get through the practical side of things than what it does for theory. Yeah.
I could imagine there'd be quite a few kids that would want to do that subject just out of interest or it could be a passion that's something they've always wanted to do.
That's where it starts in year 10.
Yeah.
So, it's just a taster course to see whether or not you like it. So we get them up to, or when I say we, I get them up to solo status or just before it, so they've got a really good idea if it's for them or not.
That's awesome.
So and you wouldn't get that opportunity anywhere else.
No.
And as I said to you, I've shared it with other schools, but it hasn't worked out as well because it's a completely different style of teaching, and the knowledge is, very, very different. It's not something
completely different.
Specialist aviation knowledge is really needed to go making it work.
Absolutely.
And me having the experience that I've had as an instructor and approved flight examiner for parachute operations and all that, that all comes into play as well because, what's written in the book, I can look at that and think, I've got a better way of doing it. Whereas if you're just a teacher, you take the book as gospel.
Absolutely.
You don't sort of deviate from that. But, it's like everything. It's like a teaching course at university. What you learn at university has really no reflection of what it's actually like to be out there teaching,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is there any plane that you enjoy flying yourself more than others? Like, as opposed to, say, a 737 to a smaller plane? What's your favourite plane to fly? Do you get much time to fly these days, or is it more the instructing and the teaching?
It's more the instructing, the teaching side of things that I do. Look, So I like high performance planes. I don't like little planes.
Yes.
I like the kids are learning in a Cessna 152 at the moment. And
Okay.
I've flown a 152 before, and they're great little aeroplanes, but they're just a little bit too small for me.
Okay.
It picks up every single bump in the air, and I like something a bit bigger. I like flying twin engine aeroplanes because I like the having the reliability of a second engine, but that's just the me and risk assessment and all that sort of stuff. But my mate, he owned an air van, a turbo air van up until about 3 months ago, and I used to love flying that around for him. And that was a great fun.
So good. So good. I'm always, I mean, my next question is, what are you most proud of in your career? Hard to choose.
Well, for me, it's seeing other people succeed. You know what I mean? So there's the teaching side of things, and seeing other people enjoy what they're doing, and you looking back and thinking, you know what, they're enjoying it because you did something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And seeing them succeed and getting their first job in flying somewhere,
awesome.
Stuff like that. More recently, and I never ever thought that I'd be doing this. Like, I was always teaching maths and science and information technology, and never anything to do with arts or anything like that. But I had the worst thing you can do is at the start of the year before school starts, and this is in the school holidays. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang, and I looked at the phone, and it was the principal, and I thought, oh my God, why is the principal ringing me up a day before I'm supposed to go back to school? Yeah, this is not good.
Yes.
But we were desperate need for teachers, and he goes, we don't have any woodwork teachers, and he goes, I know that you're the only one that I can really think of that's good on the tools, that's able to pull something like this off. And long story short, I agreed to it, so I went off and did some retraining to teach woodwork. So now I'm teaching woodwork at the school.
Jack of all trades.
Like a couple of years ago, if you'd said to me, would you ever do something like that, I'd be laughing, saying that is just so far left of field. I would never be doing something like that. But now I'm doing that, and it's really quite enjoyable.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and you're working with a whole different group of people as well. Like, you've got your academic people, and then you don't.
Yeah.
But I'm working with people that, are very, very good with their hands, and might not necessarily be good with academics, or they could be doing both. So, I mean, I'm getting the best of both worlds by doing that. You know what I mean?
That's good.
And it's enjoyable at the same time, seeing something from nothing, and then producing something at the end of it. And
that's good.
And I keep on telling the kids that this is the only thing that you can really take home from a school at the end of year 12 that you're going to remember. I mean, you can do your maths and your science and your history and all that, and you'll remember what you learnt and everything, but what have you got to take home from it? Whereas we're making, bedside tables and coffee tables, and and at VCE level you can make pretty much whatever you like. Yeah. And it's there forever. Cool. So, cool. And I keep on saying to people in year 9 and year 10, one of these days, you'll have your own kids. I know it seems so far-fetched, but it will happen. And you can look back years and years later and say, see that coffee table? I remember making that at school when I was in year 9.
That's awesome.
You know, I get a lot of thrill out of it.
Yeah.
Like that.
So it's probably something that's it turned around where you thought, oh, okay, and then it's turned out to be better than what you originally
it was
thought.
very hard to get, started because I had no idea what I was doing. And what made it worse was the VCE teacher of woodwork then left, and then so it was sort of like, can you teach VCE woodwork? And I thought, I don't even know, anything about it, let alone teaching it at VCE.
Yeah.
And this is last year.
Okay.
And then to top it off, to make it even worse, the education department came out and I was selected for an audit. So I got audited in a first year of woodwork in a subject that I knew absolutely nothing about. And
good times.
And I passed it first time round.
Yeah, good.
But, there was a method in that. Just write as much as what you can so they get so bored of reading it that just say, pass this guy.
Yeah, he's all good.
Yeah, but
they'll move on after that.
Yeah, it all worked out well.
That's so good. I guess this one jumps out at me. I don't ask all the questions of everyone, but this one, who was your greatest mentor in all of that? These... Obviously, you're your own inspiration sometime and your motivation, but was there a mentor throughout this time where was your marker or?
With the parachuting side of things, there was a guy called Barry Clark. Mm-hmm. He passed away many, many years ago now, but he's someone that I always looked up to and admired because he was just so good at what he did as far as flying aeroplanes and parachuting and sharing knowledge and stuff like that. He was a great man. But the mentor, I can't really think of anything straight off the top of my head. I think before I did anything, I sort of tried to consider it really carefully and ask lots of questions before jumping into something.
Yeah.
But as far as a permanent mentor, no, not really.
Well, my next segment is called Passions and Interests. So I guess your interest and passions, is it around you have so many. You've got your flying, you've got your teaching. Is there any other interest or passions? And your cooking?
Oh, I love my cooking.
Yeah.
I love my flying. I love my teaching.
Yes.
I'm one of those very rare people that actually love their job. I love what I actually do.
Yeah.
Monday morning comes around down in Victoria anyway, and I look forward to the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
up in Cairns,
amazing.
It was a completely different story. I just wished it was a weekend all the time, so I didn't have to go there. But no, I enjoy everything that I do.
Yeah. Very self-motivated.
Yeah, I like building things, and I said to you, my caravan is something that is a great passion of mine. So
Taj Mahal.
I thought, I'm going up to Cairns, so I took out one of the skylight. This is a brand new caravan, by the way. And it was very scary to go drilling holes in it, but took the back skylight out and put a second air conditioner on it, so it's very, very well air conditioned.
Oh my gosh!
And then when I was going up and staying at the airport, it used to get bitterly cold up there, so I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll put underfloor heating in, so it's got underfloor heating, and then all these little knickknacks, and then I
reckon that's the only caravan I would know of that has underfloor heating. Surely.
Well, yeah, people are amazed. They just think, it's ridiculous. And it's actually got a kitchen sink on the front of it. And so everyone jokes about it and says everything including the kitchen sink. And it is true. But that kitchen sink is one of the greatest things ever because I've made a bracket up on the side of the caravan with hot and cold water.
Yeah.
And it just, with John Guest fittings, you just plug it in, click, click, and it's connected to hot and cold water, so all of your washing up can be done outside. Yeah. So it keeps the inside nice and clean. It's just got everything that you could possibly want: satellite TV and internet and everything. Yeah.
It's nothing you can't do. It's like a house on wheels.
Yeah.
So tell us about your favourite musical bands.
Oh.
Where does he interest it with?
Funny, one of the kids at school just asked me about that the other day, and I was just thinking about it. But I liked Ice House.
Yes.
I liked Fleetwood Mac.
Yes.
And I like sort of jazz music, if you know what I mean. So,
cool. As in like a Diana Krall, like that kind of jazz?
Just sort of. I just get onto, I've got a Google speaker and I listen to best smooth jazz in the UK a fair bit.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's nice to listen to.
Yeah.
Although it's getting a bit talkative now, so I sort of, listen to other channels a little bit because they just talk. I'm just more interested in just listening to more relaxing music, stuff that calms you down.
Radio these days, there is so much more talk the music on on FM stations where there is, and it might not meant to be talk back, but it has evolved. It used to be just pretty much back to back music. Really now, so much chit chat.
Well, they've got to pay the bills, and they get their.
That is very true.
It's the advertising that pays for things.
That is very true. You have to have those in there. My next one, I guess, because I love concerts and I'm always intrigued. What was your first concert that you've been to?
Jack Jodes.
Oh, God! Southern Sons.
Southern Sons, yeah.
When was that?
Oh, I love the radio competitions, and I rang up and I won this radio competition, so I got to go and see Jack Jones.
Oh,
but
my
I had
gosh.
a ball.
Oh, my gosh.
It was just so good and because Jack Jones back then and Southern Sons, I mean, everybody knew the words to every one of his songs because he was just, for years and years, we saw them
popular. Recently, along with a lot of other bands. He was amazing. Yeah. He was the banter. He was so funny. That's funny you say about radio competitions. Shout out to our friend Nyden. What episode was he? But he won tickets to the Foo Fighters, rang Triple M. He also won some recent concert tickets to a concert next Friday. It's got Escape Club, Katrina and the Waves. But he has a bit of a knack for winning concert tickets.
Yeah, I just remember that. No, that wasn't my first concert. I remember now as a little kid.
Yeah.
My mum said to me, "Oh, we're going to go to Gels Park," and you know what Gels Park is. And I said, "What for?" And she goes, "Oh, because there's a guy there who's going to be playing music." And I said, "Oh, all right." And it was John Farnham.
Oh my goodness, he was at Gels Park.
He was at Gels Park with this.
Times have changed.
I remember a stage that was just built, with. It was just a board and it had a bit of a background there and people were just sitting there with picnic rugs and there wasn't many people there.
Yeah.
But it was John Farnham that was playing. Yeah. But that was, no one had really heard of him.
Yeah.
So, I remember that really well.
That would have been a good one. So my next one is around favourite movies or TV shows, actors.
I loved The Simpsons.
Yes.
Because it was witty.
Yes.
It was well thought out. The James Bond series, I like the James Bond series, especially, but the old ones, with Sean Connery and what's his name? His name just escapes me for the minute. I can't believe that I've forgotten it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we've got lots of our friends are Bond fans. Oh my God. Roger Moore. Yes.
Yep.
I had in my head Anthony. That's not Roger Moore. Yeah.
So I love those old ones.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's about it, really.
So good. So moving on to family and friendships. So describe your friendships and how valuable they are to you.
Like everything,
Yeah.
It's what you put in is what you get out of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I think being there for people, being a listener, and being, able to offer sensible advice around things, that's probably,
it's very
the
important.
way around it.
Very important. My next one is around life turning points. Can you share a significant turning point or moment of realisation in your life?
Yeah. Well, the most recent one was the Cairns thing.
Yeah.
Look, if I hadn't have done that, I would have always thought, well, what would this be like? And I would have regretted not doing it because I just wouldn't have known. So
how did you come up with the idea?
Oh, because when you go up there, everything's just glossy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the weather's beautiful.
So you guys thought, we'll go and teach there for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just try it, see what we like. Maybe we'll like it enough and we'll go and live there.
Yeah.
And but we'd been up there several times before and it was great, just beautiful beaches. Not that you can swim in them because of the jellyfish, and if it's not that, it's crocodiles. But you're living the
the postcard view of it.
It was very hard to get rid of the holiday mode to actually what it would be like to work there. You know what I mean? So living there and working there is so different than holidaying there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I went up there just to experience what it was like. And on this time it didn't turn out. But, hey, isn't that great that you now know what it's like? And so I've come down here and vastly appreciate everything that I have a look at down here.
Yeah.
Like had I not done that, I just would have think, oh, yeah, that's ordinary, or this is that, or that's that. Now I've got an appreciation for just about everything that I do down here and see and, experience.
I think it's a really good reflection when something like that has happened. That's a really good one. My next segment is called Curious Corner, where I ask random questions about our guests. Can you recall a time where you just couldn't stop laughing about something?
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Bangkok with my dad and my sister and my stepmother.
Okay.
And we went to this place for somewhere to eat.
Oh, no.
And this...
Don't know what you're about to say.
No. Because
I'm thinking something else.
Do you remember the old ding cash registers?
Oh, yes.
And I said, God, this is really, we were all very tired. And I was only like 14 or something like that. And this cash register just kept on spitting out paper and, clunk, 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 ding, 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 clunk, clunk, clunk. And it didn't stop. And I said, surely it's got to stop soon. And throughout the whole entire dinner, it just kept on doing this. And we were just laughing at it, just thinking this is the funniest thing ever. Because, what cash register just keeps on pumping out reels and reels of paper onto the floor and just, it's like it's possessed. But, at, 14 years old, it was really, really funny.
Oh, so, that's funny. That's funny you thought of something like that. My next one is, if you could have any superpower for a day, what would it be? You already fly a plane. That can't be
No.
Superman.
I don't know. I'd love to say invisible, but I can see problems with that, Taking note of the Invisible Man. I don't know if you knew that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, like you could end up with problems. Probably the ability to see into the see into the future.
Yeah.
So to be actually fast enough, like your Superman. I know that's flying and the rest of it, but to be able to move fast enough to be able to see into the future and look at things and think, that's either good or that's bad, and have the ability to change it before it happens.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Change the speed force.
Yeah.
My next one is name 5 people you would invite for dinner and why. So it can be like past family members, celebrities. Who would you have at the table?
Let's see. Well, for the funny side of things, I'd get Tony Moclair.
I was going to say, is Guido coming up here or is
Guido,
Tony Moclair? Because you actually know Tony Moclair.
I do.
Yes.
Yep. And he'll be at the Avalon Air Show and I'll be there as well, so I'll get to catch up with him.
Yes.
So that'll be good. He's actually hosting it. So
is he really?
He's doing all the commentary for the air show this year.
Oh, wow. He would love that.
Oh, yeah, it's right up his alley.
Yes.
He loves aeroplanes just as much as what I do.
So you must have you come into contact him through the aviation side of things? Because I know he is obsessed with
yeah, I met him
planes.
somewhere once and we just got talking aeroplanes. And I can't remember exactly how it happened, but there's that.
Tony Moclair.
He's just...
Would he turn up as Tony or Guido Hetzis? I'm not sure.
He's so good at Guido, but these days, in the political correctness and all, he's not really allowed to do it. Yeah, Guido's been packed back in the box. But occasionally, I have heard him come out sometimes, so that's good.
Yeah, you're probably one of not many that would hear it, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be good to just old people that I know, but I mean, a lot of as you get older, people pass away. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And sometimes you sort of when someone leaves, you sort of regret not having spent more time with them.
Oh, always,
you know what I mean?
Chris, always. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't ask them that, or I didn't, but you don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like one of my wife's friends that we, go camping with a fair bit, her and her husband, she was 50, just turned 50. and passed away in January, and we had to go to her funeral, and that was because of cancer. And, you know, you just sort of think like, and we used to go camping all the time and have a ball, and our kids, or my kids used to play with their kids. And, you know, something like that is just forever life-changing, you know what I mean? So, I don't know about, you know, which 5 people that I'd have on the table, but I'd just say, you know, cherish everybody that's around you, because unfortunately, unless you're Superman and can, you know, see into the future, you don't know what's around the corner. So make the most of every day that you can.
Yeah. Well, I decided the other day that our cats are immortal and I'm immortal. Like it's one of those things that, I mean, when you've had loss in your life, you just like stop. Yeah. Just no more loss.
You know that more than anybody else too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's definitely spending time with the people before they disappear, and you just don't know when. And my next one, I really struggled with this when I was asked this. So if you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why? I struggled with this. I have so many different music tastes. Even though I ask people this every time, I think we're up to 22 episodes, and I struggled with myself.
Look, it'd be Fleetwood Mac.
Yes.
I think I don't know what the actual title is, but I think it's called one of the verses in I Want to Be With You Everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Yes.
So, I don't know, it's got a really
good sound,
good beat to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Things like that.
I agree. Yeah, they're masters. There you go. You got one. That's really good. Now, my next one, signature dish to cook. Now, you're going to have more than one in this realm.
Well,
what's your favourite thing to cook?
Having a wood-fired big pizza oven, cooking on wood is so different than gas or electricity or anything like that. I spent as part of one of my awards for winning Teacher of the Year, I got to travel around the world.
Oh, wow.
And experience, so many different things. But wherever I went, I'd always try their pizzas, and then I'd get to know can I talk to the chef, and I'd find out what they were doing and how they did it. And so really it turned into a quest to try and find the best pizza dough I could from collecting all this information from around the world and then making my own wood-fired pizzas, which are just like the best ever.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I do too is I love Chinese cooking and I love Greek cooking. But my wood-fired lamps of Lucky's over a mallee root fire is just like awesome. And in fact, because I do love my cooking, I've started up a bit of a club at school where I look after the students, and I do with the students all of the student barbecues for athletics day and swimming sports and stuff like that.
Okay.
And just running the barbecue, we, might be cooking 1,100, 1,400 sausages. So, sausages and bread. So that's big for them. But I get them to look after that with a couple of other things. And then when back in the early days, it would just be a salad roll that you would get as a staff member. So then I came up with the idea of doing wood-fired lamps of Larkies, and so they're very, very popular at school. So
where do you get the time? I don't understand where you get the time.
Literally last Thursday, I cooked 140 lamps of Larkies, and I've got what they call Baz's Barbecue, which is a barbecue team.
Okay,
and so whenever we have an event on, we get my barbecue team together and we talk about what we're going to be doing, and it has to be something always bigger or better than what we. Or equal to what we've done the years before, you know what I mean? So,
oh my gosh.
So I just did the lamps of Larkies, but then that was by request of the staff because I'd also cooked the Christmas dinner for them on the last day of the year.
Kidding me?
Yeah. And then, Then more recently, we've got a new cohort of Year 12 students, and we'd usually get a company to come in and cater for it, but the costs have just blown out significantly. So they said, Chris, can you do it?
Chris the caterer.
Yeah. Well, literally for a quarter of the price.
Yeah.
And when people used to come out, they'd just be like pancakes, and it'd be a selection of fruit and some drinks and the rest of it, and it would cost the school an absolute fortune per head. And I'd overpriced it, and yet I'm cooking. What did I only just recently did this for 270 Year 12 students and the staff. And again, Baz's Barbecue came to the rescue with the small team of staff that I've got to help me. But we did bacon and eggs, we did hash browns, we did pancakes, we did the strawberry Kool-Aid, whipped cream, and it was
so
like this
good.
epic breakfast, and fresh rolls and all that sort of stuff, and so.
I don't know where you get the time.
Oh, school gives me a little bit of time to do it, but it's an early morning. For example, the wood-fired souvlaki's, I had to start that at 1 o'clock in the morning for something that was going to be just served up just before lunch, because it takes a long time to get it all ready and prepare it and make sure.
What did you say? Mallee root underneath the lamb,
yeah.
So that gives different.
Yeah, it's like if as a barbecue
as opposed
tip,
to coals.
anyone that wants a barbecue tip, never ever use heat beads. They're just disgusting. But get lump wood charcoal.
Yeah.
And proper wood. It's the only way to cook food.
Oh my gosh. So there's the pilot, there's the chef, there's the teacher. Like there's just.
Well, the interest in the chefing side of things, I got myself a moonlight job when I was in Tennant Creek.
Oh, okay, yes.
And that was at the Tennant Creek Memorial Club, and I just said, I'm really interested in cooking. Can I help out? And that's literally how it started. And then I met the head chef there, and he'd cooked for literally royalty. He used to work at one of the top restaurants up in Sydney.
Okay.
And Richard was his name.
Oh.
And I got to know him. And he taught me a lot of all this stuff that I'm doing now, and I still remember it. And in fact, we got along like a house on fire. And he ended up, I had a place in Tennant Creek, and he would stay there because of the late nights and early mornings and all the rest of it. And then it's funny, like when I was working up there, there was a British couple, and they said to me, that was a really, really fabulous dinner. Can we buy you a drink? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. Because that's what you do when you're that age. You're young and all that. And so I sat down and I talked to them. And their name was Roger and Lynn Wormwell. Okay. And they said that they were out here on a holiday, and their daughter was travelling around and the like. And I said, oh yeah, I should meet your daughter and the rest of it. And so I met the daughter, and eventually months later. And then she met Richard, the guy that I was chefing with, and they ended up getting married.
Oh, for God's sake!
Yeah. Oh, and then he ended up moving back to the UK, and then which was fabulous. And unfortunately, I asked him to be the best man at my wedding.
Oh yeah.
And and he agreed to it, and they were both going to come down, and it was all very very exciting. And then I had a phone call from Emma, the daughter, saying, "You won't believe this, Chris. He's passed away. He just had a brain hemorrhage," and couldn't believe that.
How old was he?
He was in his 30s.
Oh, my God.
Yep. It just it just dropped to the ground, and that was it. And but years later, only a few years ago, I went to go and visit Emma and her dad, Roger and Mum Lynn, and I still keep in contact with them on a regular basis, and that's been years and years. And it was just met them at the pub, and they said, "Oh, can we buy you a drink?"
That's a random interaction,
and have spoken to them ever since.
Oh my gosh! Oh gee, that would have been very tricky to navigate. Then is the passing away of a friend that is going to be a key person in your wedding. That's awful.
Yeah. Well, I wanted two best men, which was allowed.
Yes.
So he was one of them, and Jordan was another one.
Yeah. My next one is, as I've injured myself so many times over the years, I'm always curious about other people's injuries. Tell us about a time where you've accidentally injured yourself?
Oh, the worst one was when I was down at Waratah Bay, and as a kid, I play. How when you're in primary school, you'd remember this because the same thing happened to you.
Yes.
In primary school, when you're in preps and grade 1 and all that, you could bring like 20 cents along, and they'd give you a little tree that you could go and plant.
Oh, yes.
So I bought a little wattle tree, and I planted it in the backyard down at Waratah Bay.
Oh, wow.
And it was no longer a small tree. It was this massive, massive tree that towered the house. And because you've got no mains water down there, it fell onto the roof, and it was always tainting and blocking up the rainwater system.
Oh, yes.
So I thought, I'm going to cut this thing down. So I climbed up a ladder with my chainsaw
no.
Started chopping the branches down just to start with, but one of them landed the wrong way on the bushy end and it acted like a spring.
Oh, no.
And it was a fairly thick log, like half a foot in diameter. It bounced off the ground and then bounced right up in the air and literally got me in the right side of the face and jaw and ended up breaking my nose, and I was almost knocked out. I saved myself with the chainsaw as I fell to the ground, but then everything, there was blood going everywhere and an ambulance had to come along and take me. And
Was your mum there?
Yeah, Mum was there.
Oh.
Mum was there.
Beepers. That's a doozy.
Yeah, so that was just freak, like just
Happens.
It just landed the wrong way. I mean, I'd done it so many times before.
Yeah.
Something like that, but this branch just landed the wrong way and it just hit me in the face. Yeah.
Heavens. This is an interesting one. I don't know what you would choose. So if you could do things differently, what career would you choose? So is there anything else that you've thought, I think you've really...
I know that most people would say something like that and want to change, but, for me, I'm really content and I'm happy, which is a rare thing, to be doing literally what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think that I would really love to do is be the captain on a ship. And in particular...
the switchboard's just lit up. I've got some offers.
I'd love to be, in my next life, if that does happen, I'd love to be, a perfect job for me would be a captain on the Spirit of Tasmania because I love that ship and I love the destination.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be a lot of fun. It comes with great responsibility, of course.
Yes.
But it's not, you're not away from home for weeks on end.
Yeah.
It's still a big ship. And I just think, and plus going on that ship backwards and forwards to Tasmania and the staff and just watching the way that they all work together, that's sort of like the best team that I've ever seen. It's like working with the teachers that I work with at my school. They all come together and help each other out, and that's pretty rare too because that didn't happen up in Cairns. I never saw that, or sharing or just helping other people. But that Spirit of Tasmania and that teamwork that I see just wants me to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Now, my next one is I'm always curious about the hall pass. So if you could have a night with someone other than Julie, who would it be? Some people choose just so many random celebs or whatever that some people can't choose.
Who would? Okay, it's just like a night out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like whatever. Yeah.
Gee, I really don't know.
With your contacts, you could probably contact lots of people.
I could. I've sort of done that before because I'd known Peter Hitchener for years and years and years, so I got to meet a lot of people.
Oh, Lavinia Nixon.
Him.
Have you met Lavinia?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, shout out to a couple of our friends that are obsessed with Miss Lavinia.
She's a lovely person to talk to. Yeah. Let's see.
Can be international, Australian.
There is someone. I just can't think of their name.
Actress?
No, it'd be someone political, I think.
Okay.
But to get into their head and to find out how their mind works and what they're thinking when they go making these sorts of decisions, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, but not be treated like I know Donald Trump's getting himself in all sorts of trouble on the international stage. But to meet someone like that and to just work out what's going through your head how do you come to these decisions? What's the vision and does he know something that we don't? You know what I mean? Just things like that. I'd like to find out more about.
Absolutely. So moving on to legacy and reflections. What are you proudest of in your life? Not so much career, but in your life.
Having kids that are healthy with 5 fingers and 5 toes that are happy.
Yeah.
That's, for me, gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah, the pinnacle. Is there anything in your life you regret?
There is. Yeah, I was pretty hot-headed when I was growing up,
Okay.
and I wish that, I could have been a little bit different and, treated some people nicer, I think,
As in just a temper or?
Oh, yeah, again, it's nothing malicious or anything like that. It's just when you're growing up, like, oh, I'm going to go out with these people instead of you.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And giving that a little bit of thought. And now that I look back at it, I wouldn't have done that. But when you're, around friends and, they're doing this and you think, oh, yeah, that sounds much better than doing what I'd planned to do with you or something like that, and then just doing that instead. You know what I mean? Just that sort of attitude, you know what I mean? I wish I could have thought that out a little bit better. and I guess that's why I'm pretty critical about what I do now and how I do things, and I just – think very carefully before I act, and before you open your mouth up, try and think a little bit, what are the consequences of the words that you're going to say in 10 years' time,
Yes, absolutely. So when you look back on your life, what do you hope to be remembered for?
A go-getter, as in, making the most of every opportunity.
I think you've ticked that box literally, Chris.
I like the idea of that. But just being content with what I've got.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't need to be a schoolionaire. I've got dreams and all that. I mean, I'd love to own an aeroplane.
I was going to say, is that on the Christmas shopping list?
Love a private jet. But then again, it's not buying the aeroplane that's the most expensive part. It's the upkeep and the maintenance and the fuel.
Yes, true.
You've got to have, that's just one of those pipe dreams. But no, I'm really content with what I've got, and I make the most of it. I just,
Yeah, you do. I think you do, absolutely.
Makes you happy. I try and not focus on anything that's negative or bad.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I like the news, but a lot of the time I just think it's just it's just all bad and depressing, and there's so many other good things that you could concentrate on. That's what for me, I always just try and make sure the glass is always half full and not half empty.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more amazing things happening in the world than what's reported.
And I make the most of every opportunity and do the best you can. Don't do a half-assed job. Just do it right the first time.
I have one thing just popped into my mind then is do you watch a lot of movies with planes in them? Like, are you a flying high kind of fan or?
Back then, yes. I was obsessed with Top Gun, and then I was obsessed with flying high, which in the United States is called aeroplane.
Yes, that's right.
A different one. Right. But I do like watching shows like Air Crash Investigation, not because of the misery behind it, but what you can learn from it.
Yeah.
And the mistakes that people make, and that changes the way that I think also, because I can reflect on that and think, this happened because of a series of stuff-ups that compounded. And so, I like to make sure that everything is done right the first time around. And if you're not happy with it, speak up, say something and say, hey, listen, this is an issue or this is a problem. But I've not seen the movie Sully or anything like that. And I know that it's been out on Netflix for ages. But I don't need to see the dramatisation of it. I like to just deal with the facts and what happened, what caused this, what can we learn about it, and how can we change this so something in the future, or that risk can be minimised in the future. You know what I mean? And some things, birds you can't help. They'll fly wherever they like. But a lot of the other scenarios in that, something just so simple. You can learn from it and make sure that, and be aware of it, make sure that the same sort of thing doesn't happen to you.
In your mind too, with say the MH17, like how
MH370.
in your mind, in your mind, how can that happen? Like, is it? You've probably looked at it.
I look at it and I don't agree with the captain being responsible for it.
Okay.
The captain was, everybody can have breakdowns and the rest of it. I just don't think that that's the solution. And I think that there's no evidence to point to him actually having done that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know actually what happened, and I don't even know where that aeroplane is. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that it didn't go down in the water, and the fact is that for days, people were ringing some of those passengers' mobile phones, and those mobile phones were ringing days after this incident occurred. Now, if an aeroplane goes down in water and that mobile phone's clearly off, it would just divert straight to voicemail. Yeah. It would not be sitting there ringing and then go to voicemail, as happened hundreds of times and reported hundreds of times. So, if that aeroplane went into the sea, I don't know, but there's also other places that it could have gone. The debris that was washed up, Boeing, I know because I've actually been to the Boeing factory over in Seattle, and I've seen these aeroplanes put together, and everything has got a serial number stamped on it. Well, this part, which was a flap section, I believe, that washed up had no serial numbers on it or anything, and there's no way that somebody would have gone and sanded out the serial number that would have been stamped in it. So I don't believe that was part of the accident at all. But
so weird.
I think something else has happened. I know that that aeroplane was, if you have a look at the cargo list, was filled up with a lot of military stuff that could be considered as being classified. And where did that end up? How did that happen? So I think there's a lot more than it just going somewhere down in the ocean.
Just disappearing.
And I don't think that, a captain would do something like that.
Yeah.
I know that people can have nervous breakdowns, like the German Wings flight that locked the captain out of the cabin. That's a different story. But whatever happened there, someone knew what they were doing because they knew how to turn off all of those systems, so it wasn't then traceable. But as to what actually happened with it, I don't know. But
so strange.
It seems very planned, whatever it was.
Yeah, very strange. Oh my gosh! So you can relax. That's the end.
Oh, super! I've enjoyed it though.
Come to the end. As I say, I cannot wait to upload this bad boy. So this is part of season 3. So thank you so much for sharing all of your stories with me, and I'm sure there's so many people that are going to be inspired by your stories, and I hope that maybe some of them follow your dreams, because you absolutely have followed your dreams and inspiring other people as well. And it hasn't become about you, it's become about inspiring others. So
I'm just amazed that we've grown up, since the age of 3 years old or something like that, and hadn't seen each other for years and years and years, and yet here we are sitting here now.
That's exactly right. So thank you so much for joining me today.
No worries, that's great.
See ya. Thank you so much to Chris for sharing his stories with us. I am sure you are all inspired by his passion for his job and passion for enjoying success in others. His students, past and present, are so incredibly lucky to have had him as a teacher. Honestly, it seems like there is nothing Chris can't do, from airline pilot to teacher to lifeguard to cooking for his team and students. I love how he has not only grabbed every opportunity in life, but he has created his own opportunities and made his dreams a reality. I hope that whatever dreams you have in your life, that Chris has inspired you to achieve your own dreams and goals. So thank you, Chris. Tune in to our next episode where we get to hear more lives worth telling. Don't forget to check out and follow us on your socials. And if you love what you hear, please rate and review us on your favourite podcast app. Of course, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us through the Facebook page or Instagram. If you or a friend or a family member would like to come on the show, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. And if you want to grab yourself some merch, jump onto Redbubble to check out our products. Thanks for listening to Lives Worth Telling. See you next time.